Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon, co-author with Peter Vale of the digital book on Practice as a Way of Being. Find it at mylibrary.world. And now to our show. Interesting coincidence. When I thought earlier today of myself as a free-range teacher, now that I've retired from the classroom, I went ahead and met Dr. Lisa Thomas for this podcast, and lo and behold, she is also a lifetime free-range teacher. Yes, both of us have connected to places where we could be formally thought of and used as teachers, but in between, we were out finding people who we can help. And that's how I met Lisa at an emerging organization called Open Source OD, standing for Organization Development. And she was facilitating one of their programs, which is intensive learning circles, and I asked if I could join and co-facilitate. So we've done that twice, and now I know I want to be working with Lisa again and again, fellow free-range teachers. And so here is a very interesting colleague now, Lisa Thomas. Not too long ago, and I wish it were much longer ago because I've loved meeting and talking to Dr. Lisa Thomas and working with her remotely, is this opportunity now for the two of us to become better acquainted. Why not more fully acquainted, Lisa, with the few times we've met? Because I was drawn to the work of Bill Brendel, Dr. Bill Brendel, who was created with some very wonderful volunteers, the open source OD universe for us. Whether it's one person or a million, it is a place that we could migrate into. And once inside the open source, and I was very much attracted to open source, we could be ourselves and see what emerges. Now, there's always a curriculum, and there are lots of other things about it. But what Lisa and Bill did is they said, Dave, you've come to some of our intensive learning circles. And so maybe you'd like to learn how to facilitate these. And I thought, well, why the heck not? But Dave, you got to be coached by Lisa Thomas before we'll let you facilitate. So I was happy to that because I watched Lisa work on these, and she does it masterfully. Now, Lisa's got many, if you look at it, I'll put her LinkedIn profile up there when I post this episode, but you'll see that she has quite a few different things that she loves and to report in her profile. But the one that we settled on is a personal development consultant or coach. So first, Lisa, welcome.
Well, thank you, Dave. That was wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, now, let's start with open source. Were you, like I, attracted to intrigued by that name, open source, when Bill started to put the word out?
It wasn't the open source part. It was find your calling part that got to me.
Oh, that's right. He had the different survey instruments. And
there is an assessment, the assessment that you take. And it's a wonderful assessment that can be used to help you to identify your strengths and a path for you. And I was just really, really intrigued. I think I went to a webinar that he was conducting, and then took the most assessment. I said, wow, this is wonderful. It has really, really great resources for you that I said, I want to be a part of this. And so with the background that I already have, I said, this would be really good. And before I know it, here we are. Um, and I'm having a really good time with the immersive learning circles and being able to help people in the way that I do anyway, with coaching and consulting. And this is just another avenue to do that.
Yeah. When you took that survey, was it what leapt out at you? Because sometimes they really are good. They pick up on you that leapt out and you say, oh yeah, that's me.
Right. That's what it was. It was some of the nuances that I have not gotten from other surveys. And when I say that, there are things that were spot on as far as your personality strengths or your interests or your natural the way that you would normally do things that are not captured from other ones. And I really was immersed in the different dimensions that are offered with that most assessment. And then there was articles and blog posts and webinars that you can go in and look at based on what your profile tells you. Yeah. And so it was much more comprehensive than others that I have taken. And it's really, really good for anybody who has not taken it. Either it will tell you or suggest to you which areas of organizational development might be good for you. Mm-hmm. It gives you resources to build on that. Or it will tell you that maybe OD is not your thing.
Not for you. And as you said, when we set this up, I'm certainly am interested in organizations. Who isn't? But I'm more drawn to the person and a way that I can be influential to one or a very small group of people in their own journey for development. Is that true?
That's right. Yes, that's right. I think that, in my view, if you can help the individual, you help the organization.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to start with the individual, and for our working environment now, we work in teams, and a lot of us are either hybrid or remote. Sometimes we're in. It takes something to be able to work in that kind of environment. So each individual brings something to that, and working on that person, working with that person, you've helped the team. Once you've helped that team, you've helped the division. Once you help the division, you've helped the organization.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes is the better approach than trying to dive into the organization as a whole from the start.
It seems, and I've thought of this as I've met different organization level consultants like the ones we featured in the learning circles, like Ed Shine and Peter Block and others, is that it seems like they're embracing the entire organization. And in many ways, they are intellectually embracing it. But really, when it comes down to the conversations that they have access to with a very few people, whether they're senior leaders or in the case of the one we just went through earlier this week, going out on the street like Francis Baldwin did and talking to people who were striking employees for this particular municipality. That brings to mind something that I've learned about you in the two sort of video cases that we've facilitated together. In both instances, we didn't have very large audiences.
Right.
And what I learned about you is 1 or 1,000, but I prefer 1 or 2, like we had this time. Now, from a scale of trying to finance these events, they would be looked at as the cancellations. Oh, we can't just do it for 1. But you were as genuine and generous in the first one with that one person from California, and now with the 2 we had. It was wonderful. And what was coming out, as we just mentioned before we started recording, was these insights are amazing. And because they were you made them comfortable. And so I think tentatively, at least the young lady would say, well, I don't know if this is appropriate to say, she was very tentative at first. And you said, say whatever. No, there's no wrong questions and no wrong answers. And then she started to open up. By the time we got through this very intriguing case that was real of Frances Baldwin, who's very well regarded senior consultant now, it was her first case out of graduate school, out of her doctorate. And so this event that we co-chaired in a way or co-facilitated allowed us to see two people, very seemingly young for me, everyone's young. It drew out and it got them, I think, a little bit more excited about being in a helping role, whether it's for a few people or a company. Just, I think if I see these things and great people like Francis or Ed Schein or Peter Block were going through the same thing, maybe there is, if not becoming a freelance consultant, at least in my role in whatever company or agency I'm serving, I can be more mindful of all these interconnections that you just mentioned.
Yeah. What I see in that, whether it's one person or 50, which, I can do, I've done that. It's just that you want to be aware of yourself and your purpose there. And if your heart is in it, you're authentic with yourself, that comes through in how you respond to people and they pick it up.
That's right.
They pick up that energy. And if you're in this to assist and to help, then the person who you are trying to help has to perceive that you are trustworthy, that you are authentic, and you are there for their benefit. Otherwise, how can you help them? If they feel closed and they don't feel like they can speak, or that they're going to be ridiculed or not accepted, or it's a stupid question or it's not the right answer, then we make no progress because their real questions or their real ideas are not coming out. And then I can't say, well, that's a great point.
Yeah.
There's always something good.
Or build on it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I want to jump all the way back to the question of now it's Lisa Thomas, not Dr. Lisa Thomas. This is pre-doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You're back now, and you're very early in your life and awareness of other people. Have you always wanted to be that sort of person for others, the one to whom they can come?
Well,
maybe cry on your shoulder, or at least try to perk up a group like you do with this facilitation role.
Well, that's very interesting because I have not sought that out, but evidently I have that kind of energy, and so
you do.
People are welcome, and I own that, and I'm grateful for that because I want to help. Sometimes you don't know that people need that shoulder. Sometimes you don't know that what kind of a day or situation a person is in.
That's right.
So from very early on, that has been the case. Not that I have sought people out. I don't go out and say, you're having a really bad day.
Yeah, I want to, stop a minute. I want to help you. No, that's a little pushy.
And plus, it may not be welcome.
Yeah.
Forming relationships and rapport with people from a spirit of acceptance, of awareness, of authenticity. People can feel that and they'll come out. And yes, that's kind of been the thing. I've been a teacher of something. And I say of something because I've done everything from teaching 2-year-olds to dance to seniors to swim. I mean, so all of that. And to do any of that, that person who you are in front of has to trust you.
Oh, yes.
Right? They have to trust you. And more for observation, observe their body language, observe their mannerisms, observe their facial expressions or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
Ask questions from a spirit of, how are you? You can tell me. We can talk about it. And if you would like, then we can maybe work on this together.
That's beautiful. So there's a teacher, Lisa Thomas, inside the coach, consultant,
Yeah.
professor, all the things you've been, and sort of a teaching person is you know welcome to we'll make a club, because I've often thought of myself that way. In fact, earlier today, I was recording an introduction to a podcast I recorded with a former student from early 2000. That's how long I've known her, about her at least, and known her. I said, well, folks, now after all those years in classrooms, I am a free range teacher.
Mhm.
No cages, no fences. I'm a free range teacher, and I'm getting to like that notion. And I think you are too, because as you say, I taught people to swim. I taught, it's not so much the subject, it's the chance to get the person to see where they were headed, and
Yeah.
then help them get there a
Yeah.
little closer to there.
Yeah.
That's a damn good way to spend your life.
Yes, and not only help them to get there, but show them that they have the answers all the time.
Yeah.
That's what's really, really good about this, is that the answer, or the pathway to the answer, they already have it.
Yeah.
If they knew how to do it, they would be doing it. However, when you look at a person and accept them as they present themselves, you can sometimes see those strengths and that they don't see and realize
And
themselves.
that's the gift I think you bring,
Oh, thank
that
you.
you can see, maybe because you have a history with lots of folks in their situation or whatever it may be, or
Mhm.
probably a very strong empathic, maybe that popped up in your assessment.
Yes.
Uh, you tune in, and that's not everyone who can do that.
Mm.
And so it is something that you develop every time you do it. So you get better and better at
Yes.
seeing things about other people. As I mentioned in describing my philosophy of my podcast, I see them as a portrait, but not complete. Just a quick sketch, maybe a little bit of the background, maybe a little paint here and there to give it a little color. But in 30 minutes or so, that's about all you get.
Yeah.
But when I listen to them when I'm editing, I'm thinking, wow, that Lisa Thomas, she said some things that in a nice, kind, laughing, spontaneous way that I want everyone to hear.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. And it is the joy that I get from assisting people. I think is what it is. It comes through. It is something that I do intuitively. It's something that you don't go to school to learn.
Ah,
You learn it from experience. You learn it from life. You learn it from um, just observing other people.
and yet you've set, in quotes, sacrificed, end quotes, those are my words, not yours, all
Mhm.
the way through a whole hierarchy of formal schooling to have a doctorate. Uh,
Yeah.
so, and I know some people who think I can't be a really successful person until I have the credential, and then I'll be a better person. That
Mhm.
doesn't work.
No.
You start with whatever your heart and soul are telling you want to be, and it must break out. Now you look at the various levels of formal education as a gates to open and get past, and in the goods. And in the meantime, you learn some theory and you meet some really good teachers and some fellow students who maybe become friends for life, like this person Kelly, who I caught up with this morning. So, what was your drive to get through the bachelor's and the master's and the doctorate?
Well, I have to say that drive came from my mother. that was drilled into us. Um, get your education, and I will say, I do identify as female. Sometimes you have to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a woman of color, and
Mm-hmm.
society um, can treat us a little differently. So mother would say, get your education. That's something that can't be taken away from you. Learn how to do more than one thing.
Yeah.
So those words still ring, in the back of my mind, and I still continue to learn.
Yeah.
So that was the drive for it. But as I went through the bachelor's, the master's, which oddly, or not so oddly, the bachelor is management in organizational sciences.
Yeah.
MBA, I didn't want to limit myself to just management. So the MBA gives me the finance, the management, the accounting, so that I can have a more well-rounded.
Wow.
But the specialization is in human resources management. So all of those things still point very squarely to the person.
Yeah.
Through the organization.
Yeah.
Okay. And then of course IO psychology is the culmination of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the drive was to learn, get your education, learn something. And then when you learn it, use it to assist other people.
I was bothered by something you told me, Lisa, just before again we recorded, and no criticism. You said that people don't always think that I am a doctor, Lisa Thomas,
right?
And you've just given us a context for that. Generally, people don't expect an African American woman to have a doctorate, to have achieved that much. I'm actually disgusted by that aspect of our society, but I lived through it. From being not at all encumbered by things you've talked about, but in the 60s when I was going to undergraduate school, 61 to 65, I was in Maine, and I grew up with mainly very white people. I didn't even know that much about what was going on with Martin Luther King, other than conceptually I knew about him, but it didn't dawn on me that there were whole huge populations in this country who were not even allowed to eat in the same places and all of that. In my lifetime, I was so disgusted. But now I'm fortunate to get a fellowship to work on my master's degree in Michigan. This is 65, 66 or so. And it was exactly the time that the riots were happening in Detroit. I was in Flint, Michigan mainly for my fellowship. And I was like, wait a minute. I mean, what the heck
is going on? Right.
Yeah. I mean, this is awful.
I
interned in a school where I was the only person with white skin, and I was watching these little kids playing, and I'd be visiting classes, and I did a few teaching stints just to, kind of be of value in the school. And I thought, there's absolutely not anything about these kids that's different than the kids I used to teach swimming in the Portland YMCA in Maine. They're good-hearted, they're good souls, they're alert, they're curious. What is it about our society that, because of their skin tone and his, that they basically don't want to see these kids have a happy future? And by and large, even Flint, which was pretty prosperous back then, didn't care that much about those kids having a prosperous future.
Right.
Overall, you could feel it, because it was just south enough. And a lot of people came up from the south to Detroit and Flint to work in the automobile. And there was that attitude from the south that was prevailing up there. And it used to bother me. Now, I'm sorry for the long harangue, but this is your life experience. And how is it now for you and for people you care about?
Changed. The process is just different, but the stigma is still there. It is something that I think people of color, not just African Americans, but people of color deal with every day. I'll say I read an article because I like to read research, of course. And in this study, there were people of color asked questions about healthcare. And overwhelmingly, the results said that people of color expect to be disrespected. They expect to be dismissed when they go for healthcare.
Oh, God.
That they prepare themselves for that. That is the reality of not only in healthcare, but also in education and employment and housing. Another study I read today about people of color being denied home loans. Even when
to this day?
Yes.
Even though that's illegal?
Yes. This was today. The largest, so that the article stated, the largest credit union in the United States, over 50% of African American applicants were denied, even though the income was the same, or the debt equity ratio was the same. All the deciding factors were the same. So this was an organization that did the study. It wasn't something that somebody just pulled out of the air. And it still goes on. So what do? We persevere. Yeah. You have to keep going. You have to, if that credit union does not accept you, go someplace else. And what happens is you become more resilient.
Yeah.
You become an advocate for yourself. And
I like that. I like that a lot.
You have to be an advocate. Otherwise, what choice do you have?
Yeah. I mean, the choice is not good. And in your predecessors, your mom and dad, and those who preceded you, not too many generations back, that it was altogether worse. So I guess we can say, well, maybe because of perseverance and because you and so many others have shown the world, hey, I'm able to compete with anyone. Skin tone doesn't matter. There's more of that now. And another thing that we just happen to be having on the call preceding this one, we were talking about the importance of diversity within this Christmas season.
Okay.
And some of us said, well, one woman said, well, my family is all gone now, and I find myself craving to be among people from different religions, different experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for that kind of venue, place that I can go, even if it's, and so there's more interest, at least at one level. Then I countered by saying, well, I don't want to be Mr. Scrooge here, but right now the military refunding, the Republicans are putting in a provision that they would defund the DEI, or the diversity, equity, and inclusion training within all the militaries.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, in 2023, there's still so-called legislators who will bold enough or emboldened enough to be publicly saying we shouldn't be encouraging diversity in our military. And at the same time, it's the same group that's saying women in our military cannot have reproductive freedom. So I didn't want to turn this conversation into a harangue, but you're living it. And as someone who's out there to help people, I'm sure that you can be very helpful in helping people understand that no matter what, they've got to persevere.
What I do not understand, and what's really I'm dismayed by, is when we talk about diversity, we thrive as a nation because of diversity.
Absolutely.
An organization, a business will thrive because of diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of background. A person who has had a background of depravity knows how to get things done with less.
That's true.
That is a valuable resource for an organization.
That's very true.
A person who has a different ethnical background, that has other traditions and other thought processes, is an asset to anybody who serves people. And are selling or servicing one group of people, just one, you're doing a disservice to your company.
That's right.
Embracing the diversity in your company who can help you to market to those other people, or to give a product or a service that is valuable to other people than what you, to the homogeneous kind of people or clientele. So I don't get it. The bottom line is suffering when you do not include diversity, equity. Belonging is a very big part of that.
That's right.
Other than that, if people don't feel like they belong, then your DEI is hollow.
Yeah, true. I think of the history. I'm sorry to interrupt, but a lot of our grandfathers and grandmothers were forced or wanted to go into World War II because it was a cause. And so many of my friends who's now they're in the 90s or they passed away, who went in they were very young. What it was for them is, in a particular unit, whether it's in a Navy unit or an Army unit, there were people with every possible background you can imagine, because the military wanted you. Yes. Now, granted, they did exclude some African Americans still, but not all. But at least the other ethnics and religious groups and preferences all were forced together in a barracks to learn how to keep each other alive. Yeah. And that was a huge transformational event, those 5 years or so, for so many of us. So when our tradition going forward was improved by that in some ways, because that was a forced togetherness. And there are other moments too. But I think, as we're moving ahead to the end of my time clock here, that in a way, going back to open source as a term that attracted me initially. Open source. You think about it as, in technology, they would put out a problem that was too tough or too expensive for one entity to solve, and they would say, I'm putting it out to in this case, the IT world, and people through technology would volunteer all these great ideas and help, and everything else would come to the fore because they were so intrigued with the fact that this problem was apparently impossible to solve, which it never was. Now, I think in some ways we're looking at organization life going forward for the individual as well as the collective. And whatever group, and Bill Lendel's leadership for this one, has to say, we're open. You come in. The problems of organizational life are impossible for any one senior executive or anyone to solve. Yeah. We're open for suggestions, for ideas, and for examples and experiments. Yes. That's the future I'm hoping for you, Lisa, in your work.
That would be wonderful. If you can help the one person, then again, yes, you've helped that organization, but one person with one team, one person from another, we can get there. So that is my hope. Mm-hmm. That's what kind of drives me. That is my gratification, is to know that a person feels better about what they're doing, and that they can be independent, they can be strong, they can be productive, they can be happy, and in their job or in their personal life or professional life, they can be resilient and flourish because of something that we have done together. That's
I'm going to give you an instruction, because I'm the elder in this combination here. You're younger than my shoes, I'm sure. I'm going to say, Lisa Thomas, Dr. Lisa Thomas, go forth. That's your mission.
All right. I'll take that.
Do you accept?
Absolutely.
It's been fun. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for listening to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. If you'd like to hear more, go to Automatic, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And please consider purchasing our book on practice as a way of being at mylibrary.world. It's a digital book with lots of features that you do not see in a conventional book. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to you listening again.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me.